Now, you mentioned that there are things that the mother can do to harm the baby in this case, right? What are those things?
Because the two at the top of the list um, are what we mentioned before, which is
Okay.
alcohol and smoking. Um, so, but if you take a look at, let's go beyond just the mother. Let's generate a list of things that accelerate the aging process, accelerate the biological aging process.
Hmm.
So let's make two lists, one that accelerates and one that decelerates, or maybe, I mean, not only slows down, there's some intriguing evidence that maybe telomere degradation can be reversed, not just slowed down. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
But let's take a look at the things that are factors that will accelerate your biologic aging. So tobacco and alcohol consumption, top of the list,
Mm.
as far as we know. Now, in fairness, to my knowledge, these are not randomized controlled trials. So these are the evidence is what public health scholars would rely on, which is more epidemiologic data. So we can't say there is a direct cause without the randomized controlled trial, but you can say there's an association. So tobacco use, alcohol consumption associated with shortening of telomeres. Irregular, unrestful sleep patterns.
Mm.
We take sleep for granted. And yet there's some evidence that if you don't get restful sleep over the course of an extended period of time, you actually increase your risk of dementia by perhaps as much as 60%, which is shocking. Stress, this good old stress, the adrenaline rush. The acute adrenaline rush, probably not a problem. The chronic adrenaline rush, and you've probably heard of the hormone cortisol. In the short run, very helpful. In the long run, a really nasty hormone. Breaks down tissue, can kill brain cells. Highly refined sugars, highly refined flour appear to be associated with acceleration of aging as measured by telomeres or DNA methylation. Um, Chronic high doses of stimulants such as caffeine. But what's interesting, because moderate doses of coffee use seem to be protective.
Mm.
So it's a classic curvilinear relationship. None, not so good. A little bit to moderate, good. Too much, really bad. Kind of like chocolate cake. I mean, I'm a chocolate
Yeah.
cake
Yeah.
guy.
Uh-huh.
So, a little bit of chocolate cake, good, hits the spot. Try to eat an entire chocolate cake. I mean, I'm 170 pounds. I just can't do it. Yeah, it's going to make me sick. Um, One of the things that has gone hiding in plain sight is, change gears a little bit, the gut biome, the relationship between your gastrointestinal system and your overall health. We are just beginning to understand that as you age, as you engage in certain behaviors, there can be leakage, kinds of, sounds a little gross, leakage from the gut into the bloodstream. This causes chronic inflammation and a wide variety of illnesses that go low level, perhaps chronic, increasing the burden of your life, often misdiagnosed, typically misdiagnosed as something else because we're looking for an external pathogen. Last place we're looking is gut leakage. So there's some fascinating uh, clinical evidence to say things that we can do to reduce inflammation, chronic systemic inflammation, can do a lot to promote, I think, a deceleration of that aging process. Ultraviolet light, sunlight, of course, we know that's associated with skin cancer, don't we? And this one may come as a surprise: social isolation. It's been argued that we are in the middle of an epidemic of social isolation. Research tells us that the single best predictor of resilience is connection to other people. So when we see psychological surveys telling us that Gen Z and others are socially isolated, it is not surprising that we also see that higher levels of anxiety and depression than in other generations. So that's our kind of don't do list.
Got it. And what would the second list be for things that you should do? Obviously, you mentioned get consistent exercise, diet, but like outside of those two things, what else can people do?
Excuse me. So let's not underestimate again the power of exercise. We used to think that physical exercise was just good for cardiopulmonary. I mean, if I go way back, there were two types of exercise. There was aerobic exercise, kind of like running, jogging, quick walking. And there was anaerobic exercise. The classic was weightlifting. And back in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, never the twain shall meet. You did one or you did the other.
Really?
So, yeah, we're going back in history here. So, I used to be a competitive weightlifter. So, we would not run. And then a few of us got together and we started thinking, after we spend 4 hours in the gym lifting weights, what we're going to do is we're going to go run. And that's what we did. So we'd run 2 miles after. And people looked at, well, that's kind of weird because aren't you undoing the weightlifting? No, you're not, actually. I mean, there was a lot of mythology back then. And it even went back to the notion if you lift weights, you get muscle bound and you lose flexibility, which is, of course, not true. If you stretch, obviously. So cardiopulmonary benefits, bone density benefits, really important for women after their estrogen levels drop, obviously, right? But fragility may be the number one cause of premature death in the elderly, because fragility leads to falls, and falls lead to other problems that generally shorten the lifespan. So we are now learning that, okay, there are really good benefits from exercise physically, but now we're learning that the exercise affects even the telomeres. So that's really, really exciting. So dietary, obviously, we talked about refined sugars, refined flour, but the positive things were the polyphenols. There really does seem, and Sinclair's lab focuses on something called the sirtuins, and the polyphenols are high in sirtuins. Resveratrol is another supplement that has gained popularity in addition to NAD+. So foods or supplements that contain polyphenols seem to have some benefit. The omega-3 fatty acids seem to be in a class almost by themselves. So people that have high seafood diets, they're rich in omega-3 fatty acids, absent mercury, please, seem to be helpful. Now let's get into some of the other behavioral kinds of things. So in the 1970s, the Boston area, Massachusetts area, was the center of trying to understand behavioral approaches to wellness. And Jon Kabat-Zinn was famous for developing what he called mindfulness programs. And Herbert Benson was famous for his book, The Relaxation Response, where he talked about mantra meditation. Both mindfulness and meditation appear to have remarkably useful effects. Mindfulness may be easier to implement than mantra meditation because mantra meditation typically takes 20 minutes a day, 5 days a week, hopefully 7 days a week. But when we studied this, what we discovered was after a year, only 10% of meditators were still meditating, at least in this one study. And we asked people why, and they said, honestly, it's boring. So what we then developed and we published papers on was using a 10-minute deep breathing, diaphragmatic breathing technique, 4 days or more a week. And we actually found, and the paper was published in that crisisjournal.org, Dr. Jeffrey Lating and I published it last year or the year before, taking a look at some actual, what we would stretch the term a little bit and call behavioral immunity distress by simply practicing 10 minutes of this breathing exercise a day. Vitamins. Linus Pauling, a 2-time Nobel Prize winner. First one was in chemistry, but physiology, medicine, but for chemistry. And he said, and he was laughed at, a Nobel laureate was laughed at when he said vitamin C can positively impact the common cold. It may be a viricide. And it turns out that it doesn't totally prevent it, and it doesn't cure it, but it appears to reduce the risk. And when you do get the common cold, it seems to reduce the severity of it. And the good news is vitamin C is a water-soluble vitamin, as opposed to another vitamin, which is helpful, but is fat-soluble, vitamin D. So moderate coffee consumption appears to be protective. May actually add up to 5 years to your life expectancy. But I think tea, the data are supportive of tea as well, especially green tea. Black tea, okay. Green tea, daily consumption of green tea. And the opposite of social isolation is the last one, which is interpersonal support. Who's got your back? Why is it that people that live alone, even though they want to live alone, may find their lives more stressful than people that have a support system? It may be that if you go through life by yourself, you have to worry about everything all the time. Everything all the time. And that means you're hypervigilant and you got to take care of everything yourself. It's nice to have someone in your corner. It's nice to have an advocate. It's nice to have somebody who can help pick you up when you fall down in life. So that's kind of our list of things that seem to be helpful.